This is the Ancient and Medieval History lecture for Wednesday, the 5th of January, 2022. Please make sure your notepad is out. I will point. As a class, you will respond. Mountains.
House.
Mountains.
Appetite.
River.
Hope.
River.
Tiger.
City.
Rome.
City.
Carthage.
Continent.
Africa.
Island.
Sicily.
Island.
Sardinia.
Island.
Corsica.
Sea.
Ligurian.
Sea.
Tyrrhenian.
Tyrrhenian. Sea.
Mediterranean.
Sea.
Ionian.
Sea.
Adriatic.
Plain.
Legion.
Latium or Latium. Region.
Magna Graecia.
Massive Gracie is close. Magna Gracie is better. Region. You can just say it.
Carthaginian territory.
Carthaginian Empire, Carthaginian territory. Good. Region. Celts, Gaul, Cisalpine Gaul. Region.
Transalpine Gaul.
Good. And region.
Etruscans.
The Etruscans. Good. Feature on river.
Ford.
Ford. And region around river. Features around river. Hills. 7 of them. Good. Okay. We're getting better. So Rome forms. Whether Romulus or Remus or Aeneas has anything to do with it or not, whether it's founded in 753 BC or not, the city of Rome is established on the first ford over the Tiber River. But early in its history, it is dominated by the Etruscans, a people whose writing we cannot read. Therefore, a people who is, in effect, in essence, mysterious. Now I remember. Please take one of these, pass the rest down. Pass both ways. Yep. Pass them. And I think what we will do is tomorrow you will get to pick. I would have 3 or 4 in mind in case other people are ahead of you in the line and end up picking what you want to have. So look these over, and tomorrow we will choose. I got it. Thank you. Don't hurt yourself. Pass them forward. Now, being smart people, thank you, you will note that there are 2 sides to this sheet. Let's see. So, you have plenty of choices. These choices are from Roman history, Christian history, the history of the Middle Ages. So you've got a large amount of time and many, many topics to choose from between for your second semester case study. And if you think of something that's not on my list, you can come in tomorrow and pitch it. If I like it, I'll find a way to make it work. If I don't like it, you'll have to pick something else. Any questions about case study topics for case study 2? Okay, good. So, we have to learn about the Etruscans secondhand from what the Romans say about them. And the Romans, while influenced by the Etruscans, are also for hundreds of years their enemies until they absorb the Etruscans into Rome. And this complicates things. But we don't have the ability to understand what the Etruscans thought of themselves in their own words. Think about how difficult it would be to learn about somebody that you can't talk to. You have no common language. You can see how they dress. You can see how they style their hair. You can see how clean or dirty they are. what kind of shoes they wear, what kind of body language they have. Are they aggressive? Are they reticent? Are they quiet? Are they loud? Do they spread out and are expansive? Or are they very, very contained? But you're inferring. It's not the same as interacting, as talking and listening and being able to learn about one another directly. So what we know about the Etruscans, like with many peoples whose writing we can't read, take with a grain of salt, take with some humility. We understand it to an extent, provisionally. But new information may come to light that goes beyond the archaeology of the relics and artifacts and ruins that they left behind, and that goes beyond what the Romans and others may have written about. Okay. One thing we think we know pretty darn well is that their gods had a terrifying aspect, and that as a person died, think about this to look forward to. Your soul would be harrowed on the way to the afterlife. Harrowed, that is, ripped at and torn at by the clawed, scary gods. As such, nobody arrives in the afterlife sane. You're driven barking mad by the horror show of the god's gauntlet that you have to run as a newly dead soul. So the Etruscans come up with a way of distracting the gods, like throwing chaff into the air, which is aluminum foil strips, to confuse enemy radar. And that is, you get condemned men who are going to die anyway. But instead of hanging them by the neck until dead, or burning them at the stake, or suffocating them, or drowning them, or any of the other lovely ways that human beings have come up with to execute one another over the centuries, they're going to keep them around until a special person's funeral. And at that special person's funeral, they'll be given swords. They're called swordsmen. And they're going to fight to the death. And usually what happens is both gladiators are going to die of wounds. One is going to die right away, one is going to die eventually. Maybe one will live. It is a very rare occurrence that a gladiator, yeah, that's what they are, swordsmen, gladiators. Gladius is a Roman short sword, so gladiators are swordsmen. Rare is it that a gladiator is going to get out of a combat to the death scot-free. Rarely is a gladiator going to be able to walk away without having any serious injuries. What about the winner? Well, it depends. The hardcore Etruscans will say, good, you've got to live 15 minutes longer than the next guy, and kill him, because they're condemned men. They did something to earn the death penalty. But as time went on, sometimes the victors were allowed to live and fight another day. And when gladiator games became, even though they were always called funerary games, they were always connected to somebody's funeral. But as gladiator games become more of a entertainment than religious ritual, the willingness of Romans to allow the victor their freedom if they win a number of matches and win over the crowd began to happen more and more. But that's later in the history. That's after Etruscan times. So that tells you something right there. The Etruscans are a serious people, because only a serious people would believe in gods like that. Now, the Romans take some of this seriousness on. You've experienced enough of the Greek myths to know how playful and whimsical they can be. The gods are kind of silly. It's like a soap opera. In Roman form, when Zeus becomes Jupiter, Hera becomes Juno, Aphrodite Venus, Ares becomes Mars, Hermes becomes Mercury, Hephaestus becomes Vulcan, they become more serious. It is as if the Roman concept of the gods cannot allow for too much frivolity, because the Romans are a more serious people as a rule than the Greeks are. So The Roman aspects of the gods is almost always more demanding, more hardcore. Yeah.
Does Apollo stay the same? Because his name kind of stays the same.
Yeah, Apollo's weird. I'm not an expert on this, so what I'm going to say is sort of an amateur's impression. But I don't know why Apollo stays the same. That's weird. And they mentioned it in yesterday's video. It's like, why? I don't get it. But Apollo is also a person who's, or an Olympian, who purports to speak through a variety of sibyls, a variety of oracles. I think sibyl is the Latin word, oracle is the Greek word. And just like there's an oracle at Delphi that's important to Greek culture, there's a sibyl at Cumae, which is important to Roman culture. And maybe because of that, I don't know. Actually, Mrs. Solsvik is really good at this stuff. She might know. If you find out, let me know. I'd be curious.
Awesome.
Thank you. That counts as extra credit. So, what else can we learn about the... Well, there's a way to tell the future. Now, you might ask, why would a sane person want to know about the future? Honestly, the mystery is enough. I, beyond a certain point, don't want to know the future. As somebody who studies history, I can imagine what the future might be like, and a lot of it's not so happy. Some of it is. I don't want to know. I mean, part of life, to me, is living in existential doubt. And that existential doubt, that sense that I can't prove my God is real. I can't prove my good is right. I can't prove my way of life is valid. It's a guess. It's a leap of faith. That existential uncertainty, to me, gives life some of its spice. The book Dune, spoiler alert, tells the story of Paul Atreides, who eventually learns the power of prescience. Prescience is the psychic ability to see the future. And what he sees is many possible futures, but he also sees turning points where he can sort of guide history towards one or towards the other. You'd think that that knowledge would help him become great and wonderful. It destroys him. Not in the book, but after the book. It destroys him because there's nothing that's wonderful anymore. Nothing that's full of wonder. He knows when the assassins are going to try to kill him. He knows that they're going to fail this time and that time and the other time. He knows that there's a great doom coming to him. He knows that there's a jihad. He knows. And because he knows, he's not emotionally invested. You study a charter. You understand intellectual stuff. But you're young American people, you're human beings with your lives hopefully long ahead of you. You should be passionate about things. And you understand the difference between knowing something and feeling something, between having some scientific truth and having something that you care so much about that you're willing to take risks for it. Knowing too much about the future steals some of that. It steals some of the passion, some of the vividness, because you know how it's going to turn out. It's like playing a video game or reading a book or watching a movie for the first time compared to playing it a second or third or fifth or 10th time. It's different. After a while, you read it or you play it or you watch it for sentimental reasons because it's comforting. It may be strange, but it's comforting. But the first time, you're wondering what's going to happen now. If it's a good book or video game, you're wondering, what's going to happen now? First time I read Lord of the Rings. Does anyone not know the story of Lord of the Rings?
I don't really know.
What?
I don't really know.
Okay, well, then this won't matter to you. I'm going to say it anyway. Close your ears if you don't want to hear it. When I first read the Lord of the Rings, which is divided into 3 books, about 3/4 of the way through the Fellowship of the Ring, the wizard Gandalf dies. He's killed by a Balrog, a demon of Morgoth, the current Dark Lord's former boss. And it's horrible. And when I first read it, which was when I think was in 6th or 7th grade, I was horrified, and I experienced some grief because I loved Gandalf. And then, partway through the 2nd book, Gandalf comes back because he's an angel, see? And it was so great. My wife, who I love and respect and think the world of, even though she has poor judgment in men, my wife, that's a little joke. My wife, when she saw Gandalf die, and she was a little younger than I was when she first read Lord of the Rings, looked ahead to the end of the 3rd book, and Gandalf was there. So she knew it wasn't for real. Now, I know why she did it. She hates wondering certain things. But as far as I'm concerned, that spoils it. You want to go through what the author is putting you through. That's part of the experience of reading a book. If you look ahead, that's kind of cheating. And I, as much as I love and respect her, I'm sad for her because she denied herself that feeling of, what? He's back? She didn't experience it because she looked ahead. Anyway, yeah.
When my brother first started reading Harry Potter, he was reading the first book, but he didn't want to wait till the end, so he goes to the very end, and he sees he reads the end, and it says Albus or Ginny kissed Albus or something, and he randomly he's like, "What is this?" And I'm like, "Oh, you gotta read it."
Yeah, you do. You're not going to understand it otherwise.
Yeah.
It's absolutely true. And the books, by the way, I like the movies fine, but the books are so much better, I think. And that's true for Lord of the Rings, too. Okay. Still, the Etruscans, like anyone else, wants to know the future. They want an advantage. They want an edge. So one of the things they developed that's kind of interesting is augury. Augury is observing the flight of birds and the patterns of their behavior to discern the future. Birds? Yeah. If you read Suetonius's 12 Caesars, again and again there are signs that Tiberius is going to be a Caesar, or that this guy or that guy unexpectedly is going to become the emperor of Rome. And very often you have lightning striking a statue in a certain way, and then an eagle alights on a certain letter or a certain number on a public statue or a public building, and that indicates destiny is going to be with this person. Here's an example. This is from the story I, Claudius, written by Robert Graves in the early 20th century. But Robert Graves was a deeply educated scholar of Roman religion and Roman history. Okay. Augustus's family, this is the first Roman emperor, is vacationing in the countryside because it's hot in the summer, and it's much hotter in the city than in the country. So the kids are all playing, all of the grandkids or the kids and grandnephews and grandnieces, and the adults are sitting in the garden in the shade, sipping wine and talking. And the slave comes in and says, "Madam, mistress, sir," and Augustus isn't there; it's just his family. This guy, the great augur, is here. This is the most famous of the augurs of their time, and he's coming to visit the imperial family. So, of course, they invite him in, and they sit him down, and they start talking to him. They're curious to see why he's there. And while they're talking, the kids come up the hill, running and screaming at one another. Stop! What is going on? Why are you bringing your cacophony here? Go down the hill. Go play in traffic. Do something. I don't care. Just why? And the kids, but one at a time. Well, we were playing, and we saw this eagle dive. And when he came up out of his dive, he had a wolf pup in his talons. But the wolf pup was fighting, and the wolf pup fought himself free, and then he fell. But Claudius caught him. And there's Claudius. Claudius is deformed and sort of almost hunchbacked. He twitches and he drools. He's a rare Roman aristocrat who's allowed to live when he's born with visible birth defects. But he's holding this bloody, trembling wolf. And if you've ever seen an animal in crisis, they tremble. It's horrible. They're like freezing, but it's not freezing, it's trauma. And the adults get the slaves to bring the wolf pup in with the kids and clean the kids up and try to heal the wolf pup. And they're going to do what they can. So it's an adventure. It's something you'd remember if you were a kid and something like that happened. After all the kids are gone, the adults all look at the augur. And the augur says, yep, that's a portentous augury. That's a portentous moment. And they say, what does it mean? And he swears them all to secrecy, at least until Claudius becomes a man, or maybe an old man. The augur says that this augury is very clear. The eagle is destiny, the wolf is Rome. Obviously Rome. Rome, she-wolf, Romulus, Remus. Somehow, Rome will become as wretched and traumatized as that wolf was by destiny, by the eagle. It'll be trembling and weak and on the edge of death. And Claudius will save it. And they laughed. At least they started to laugh, and then they caught themselves, because you don't laugh at an augur, especially this augur, this famous wise augur telling the future. Because Claw was a thief. Claw was a cripple. Claw drooled. He slurred. He stuttered. The Romans aren't going to let somebody like that be important. He's lucky he's alive. He's lucky he wasn't, thrown on the hillside at birth like the Spartans. But, as you will learn when we do the history of the Roman Empire, little Claw does become emperor through a most unlikely series of events. And he takes Rome from a wretched state and makes it strong again. That's augury. It's the belief that birds, particularly the flight of birds, the behavior of birds and their interactions, foretells the future. And I think this may have something to do with birds or creatures of the air, and the belief was that hell or Hades is beneath our feet, and the heavens and the gods are in the air above us. But that's augury, looking at the future through the behavior of birds. Now, taking the auspices is something else that the Romans get from the Etruscans, but a lot of ancient peoples do this. So there's going to be a battle, and actually you saw a little bit of this in the scene from Alexander the Great. There's going to be a battle, there's going to be a choice. Do we go to peace? Do we go to war? There's a big decision that you're going to make in your personal life or for the Republic or whatever. And so you hire a priest to take the auspices. Now, in Rome, the priests were the aristocrats. They were the upper class. The priesthood was a part of the government. In fact, one of the jobs of Caesar was to be Pontifex Maximus. Pontifex Maximus is what we call the Pope today. So he is not only, Caesar, the emperor, is not only the head of government, but he's also the head of the religion. What?
Caesar Augustus or Julius Caesar?
I'm talking Augustus mostly. Julius Caesar was a dictator, a little different. Augustus is what establishes. Are you disappointed that Caesar was assassinated, or are you happy?
Oh no, I'm very happy. He was
Okay.
a very interesting emperor.
He was, and a problem. We'll talk, because we're going to, and he is a very interesting man. He is a man who changes the history of Rome. He's a fulcrum. So, what you do is you hire a priest. And that priest will take an animal, which seems blemish-free on the outside, and they'll kill it and slice it open and take out the guts. They'll take out the intestines. They'll take out the various organs one by one. Now, if the organs are all clean and healthy, it's a good sign. You should go forward. If the organs are wretched and cancerous, covered with green goo, stinky, no, it's a bad sign. Don't do that. So when you take the auspices, the priest will literally slice open the animal and see what's inside. Shh! I'm going to tell you a secret. There's a bile gland, and there are a bunch of other things inside the body that if a priest wants to, they can slice by accident that will cover all the organs with disgusting, stinky bile. The priest can also pull the organs out in a way that makes them look deformed. So, yeah, sometimes taking the auspices is a genuine curiosity. You want to see what's going to happen. But if a priest wants to, they can skew the results. I mean, unless it's completely horrible. I mean, you have an animal that looks great on the outside and is deeply cancerous ridden or whatever, then that's pretty hard to hide. But in general terms, taking the auspices is like professional wrestling. It's like WWE. Do you honestly think that 30 or 40-year-old men can go into the squared circle week after week, night after night, and wail on one another and hit each other with steel chairs and bash each other's heads into the turnbuckles and come back for more week after week? No. Normal people, if that was real, would die. Okay, they'd have maybe 1 or 2 weeks that they were good, and then they'd be in wheelchairs for the rest of their lives. Professional wrestling, spoiler alert, is fixed. It's a dance. It's choreography. It's ballet for men. Really, it is. And it's soap operas for men. When you threw a car on me last week, you thought you'd get me, but you were wrong. I mean, it's really, it's silly fun. But it's not real. College wrestling is real. Olympic wrestling, I'll assume it's real. But the Olympics are weird. They're like the United Nations. Little corruption there. But yeah, professional wrestling is fake, and taking the auspices can be faked. But still, this is all about politics, religion, politics. So augury, taking the auspices, you know the difference. Augury involves birds. Taking the auspices involves guts. Okay? Yeah, that's right. Now, the Romans, excuse me, can we all do together, really loud, in 3, 2, 1? Thank you.
They're gonna be screaming all day because there's like doing
Oh, it's not
scenes where
gonna
they're
be just
supposed to-
today.
Oh, okay, cool.
Oh,
If
really?
one of them
They're
yells, you
doing
should
it.
yell
They
back.
have to do moments of strong emotion and all of
Oh,
them
that's
scream.
funny. Okay, great. I'll try to have fun with it. I usually do, and Mrs. Fawn has a good sense of humor about it. She doesn't take it personally. Okay, I was an altar boy when I was in middle school. I was and am a fairly serious Christian, although not a very good Christian. But I loved being an altar boy. In my day, we had black robes and sort of a white overrobe, and you'd take part in the mass, and you'd ring the bells when the priest was asking God to turn the bread into the body of Christ and the wine into the blood of Christ. And the Roman Catholic Church, and the Greek Orthodox Church, by the way, takes this from Rome. They demand ritual perfection in their ceremonies. So there are cases where the Romans would have a 2.5 hour long religious ritual that would end with them taking the auspices. 2.5 hours, maybe 3 hours. And if the priest stutters, or stumbles, or trips, or spills a goblet of wine, or knocks a piece of bread onto the floor, or does anything short of perfection, they got to stop, clean everything off, and immediately start again from the beginning. Because anything less than perfection isn't just a bad ceremony, it's an insult to the gods. Now, remember what Poseidon, the sort of nicer Greek version of Neptune, did to Odysseus. When Odysseus says, I, a mortal man, conquers Troy. Oh, really? That's hubris. And I'm going to bring Nemesis to your hubris, which is what the gods do in mythology. So the Romans absolutely insisted upon, from the Etruscans, ceremonial perfection. It's like magic spells. Those people who follow sort of medieval hermetic magic believe that you can say certain words and make certain gestures and burn certain things in certain ways, and you can make a fireball or a lightning bolt or turn lead into gold or do something, to cure lycanthropy, cure the werewolf disease. But if you screw anything up, if instead of saying Klaatu Parada Nikto, you say Klaatu Parada Don't do that. The gods know you're trying to screw with them. You're trying to mess with them. Forgive me. And they're going to pay you back with a spell that's going to boomerang on you. You're trying to make a fireball. No, you're going to blow up. You're trying to cure lycanthropy. You'll become a werewolf. So ceremonial perfection is something that the Etruscans demanded because their gods, remember, were freaking scary. And the Romans kept that, and the Christian churches, especially the Roman Catholic Church and the Eastern Orthodox churches, they all demand ritual perfection. Okay. So, in the earliest part of its history, Rome is an Etruscan border town. The Etruscans march south, and they take over Rome, and the Latins are not going to mess with the Etruscans. And there are Etruscan kings placed over this border town. And the people of Rome grow, and Rome begins to flourish. It's got a great geographical location. Remember, it's on that ford. But the king is a guy named Tarkin. He's not a Grand Moff. He doesn't live on the Death Star. He doesn't tell Vader to stop choking that guy. That's a different Tarkin, spelled with a K. This is Tarkin as in Tarqu or Quin or Qin. And he is known by history as Tarquin the Last, Tarquin the Proud, or Tarquin the Bad. And bearing in mind that history is written by the victors, something's going to happen to this guy. You don't get called Tarquin the Bad for nothing. And the rumor was that he was petty, that he wanted to always win every argument he was in, that he insisted that his friends get special treatment over everyone else. He wasn't fair. He would play favorites. And he was cruel and brutal and stupid. There are times in life where somebody, theoretically should behave in a respectful fashion. But they do something that's intended for laughs. It's kind of funny. And sometimes the thing to do is laugh, because it is funny. But some people are so insecure in their leadership, or they're just so serious about everything, they can't imagine making light or having levity about something so serious. So they double down, and that's sort of what Tarkin was known for. He was seen as grasping and petty and unfair and cruel. And so, Marcus Brutus, actually, I don't know if his name is Marcus. Brutus, an early member of the Brutus clan, which is going to be important in Roman history all the way up to the time of Caesar. Brutus leads a group of Roman citizens, and they confront Tarquin. And they offer Tarquin a choice: leave or die. Tarquin chooses to leave. So Tarquin is cast out back to the Etruscan lands. And the Romans defend themselves against a series of attacks that are intended to bring Rome back into Etruscan control over the centuries. There are fights between Rome and Veii that ultimately Rome will win. So with Tarquin gone, the leading citizens of Rome say, okay, who's going to be king now? Which is a totally reasonable question. You get rid of an old king, you have a new king, because kingship is the normal form of human government before industrial times. Dictatorship is after. Human beings tend to not be free. Human beings tend to live in a hierarchical, authoritarian society. That by the numbers, that's what's the most common. But Brutus and some of the other leading citizens say, no. No kings in Rome. No kings in Rome. We're going to have a new society where the people are king. Now, the word king in Latin is rex. Rex. So, Tyrannosaurus Rex is the king of the terrible lizards, Tyrannosaurus Rex. Tyran, terrible. Osaurus, lizard. Rex, king of. So little short arms, if you're happy and you know it, because he's little arms, Tyrannosaurus. If you don't know what I'm talking about, learn about dinosaurs. They're fun. What were you doing when you were 4 years old? I love dinosaurs. I still do.
Like 6 feet long.
Yeah.
Just in relation to.
In relation to their size, it's just little thing.
They don't need arms.
No, they have a mouth that does everything for them. Everything. It's like there's a saying: if you hold a hammer in your hand, you view every problem like a nail. If you have a mouth like a Tyrannosaurus Rex, you view every problem as a meal. It's just that's what they do. They don't have many options. Anyway, Sic semper tyrannus, so passeth the tyrant. The Romans are going to set up, instead of Rex, a king, Rex Publica. Rex Publica means the people are king. Rex, king. Publica, the people. See? The people are king. It's sort of like democratia in the Greek. Demo, the people. Kratia, rulership. The people rule. In the Republic, Rex Publica, the people are king. So, this is a new way of ruling for Italy. And it's different from what the Greeks set up in Athens. And I think it actually happens before Athens. So, no kings in Rome isn't just a slogan, it becomes a law. Every Roman citizen has a duty. If you see somebody trying to become king, do not report them to the authorities. Do not go squealing to your neighbors. No. If somebody is trying to become a king, kill them! Kill them now! Afterwards, you're going to have to justify it. But if you wait around, if you report to the authorities that Septimus is trying to become king, that might be too late. While you're jabbering, Septimus might be taking power. So, Roman men, Roman citizens, have an absolute legal responsibility to kill anyone trying to become a king. No kings in Rome. That's the law. And that is the law that a later Brutus, Marcus Brutus, in the time of Gaius Julius Caesar, will be following. What Brutus and the others did is actually according to Roman law. No kings in Rome. And they were contending that Gaius Julius Caesar was trying to become the king by any other name. So, that is one of the first rules. No kings in this republic. No kings in Rome. And the Romans understood the temptation of power. Shakespeare once wrote, "Absolute power corrupts absolutely." Now, absolute power is total power. So what Shakespeare is writing is total power totally corrupts. If you take a person that's mild and nice and humble and joyful and willing to listen and mild and all the qualities that you may want in a ruler, and you give them absolute authority, total authority to do whatever they think is necessary for the common good, soon you will find that you are dealing with someone who can't handle criticism, who will not abide disagreement, somebody who will equate what they think with the truth, somebody who really believes that they can't be wrong. In other words, you take a perfect person, and the likelihood is if you give them too much power, they will become a tyrant. Please close the shades. Thank you. I'm glad you were here for that. I was trying to think of who would close the shades in your absence. This will be you.
Oh, George.
In The Lord of the Rings, which we've already referenced, the one ring of power made by the Dark Lord Sauron is a symbol for total power. And one of the reasons why the ring is such a problem is that almost everyone who has the duty of carrying it is going to be tempted to use the ring to fulfill their wishes. And in doing so, they'll be destroyed by that. So there is a wonderful scene, please get the lights, from the Fellowship of the Ring, where this is shown. So here's a hint. Don't offer elvish queens total power. They get crazy, okay? Galadriel will be crazy. And it's not that she was a bad person, it's that we all have darkness inside of us. And what we have to do to function in society is we have to learn to control it. You know, if you want to imagine what the world would be like without that control, imagine a 2-year-old, see, want, take, with the power of an adult. That's a scary, scary world. So offering anyone too much power is setting them up for corruption and destruction and setting you up for oppression and slavery. And the Romans understood this. The Romans had a deep appreciation for the power hungriness of their fellow human beings. Why? Because they're Romans. They're wolfish. They're ambitious. They're ruthless. Because they know what they would do with that power. So how do you deal with the people of an aggressive society ruling themselves? Well, what you do is you never give anyone too much power. You divide power. You force people to work together. But to do anything, you force them to work together. And that means they have to compromise. They have to limit themselves. They have to go along. They have to do deals. No one becomes a tyrant because we need to work together. This is one of the great things, by the way, about the American Republic. We learned from this. Our president doesn't have all the power. The Senate doesn't have all the power. The House doesn't have all the power. The Supreme Court doesn't have all the power. The federal government doesn't have all the power. Hell, no government has all the power. We divide and divide and divide in order to prevent anyone from becoming our tyrant. Does that prevent people from fulfilling their utopian visions? Oh, hell yes, it does. Yes, it absolutely does. The Constitution is designed to slow change down. Because they understood, our founders, that people can be stampeded, panicked into doing unwise things. In order for things to really change in the United States, you need to have about 10 or 12 years of consistent elections going a certain way. Let's say it's 12 years. 12 years is 6 congressional terms. It's 2 senatorial terms. It's 3 presidential terms. Not 2, 3. That's enough time for the new party, the new idea, to appoint enough judges so that the courts will go along with this new idea. So if you're a person that hungers for the U.S. government to make everything better for everyone, you're going to be frustrated by the Constitution. And this is one of the frustrations that my liberal and progressive neighbors have. Why can't Biden just make it right, or the Biden and the Congress just pass laws that make everyone take vaccines and that make everyone wear masks everywhere in the country at all times? Why can't they just solve poverty or solve racism? Because a government that can give you everything you want is a government that can take everything you have. And our founders knew it, and they knew it because they understood Rome. Rome worked because the Romans never gave anyone too much power. And we will talk about the divisions of power in specific next time. Questions, comments, thoughts? Okay, thank you for your attention. Remember, you have a chapter survey due Monday.